How does someone do that? How can someone use their voice, their speaking to get
Yeah.
speaking gigs?
So the one thing that is really important to remember is it's not just about a good idea and a great story. So most people think it's just about storytelling. You're in social media and marketing, we everywhere we turn, it's like the importance of story, the importance of story. We all know storytelling is important. And my challenge to people always is, well, then why are so many people shit at telling stories? Right. And it's because we have to shape stories. So stories have to deliver a message that somebody wants to hear. You have to be solving a problem. We have a thing called Blue Apple strategy, which is where everybody starts. So we have three foundations. We have what we call a focus map, because most entrepreneurs can speak on anything. We have a focus map to clear on where you should start. We actually look at what your core speaking identity is. So we have a process to look at actually who you are. So, for example, if you are a luminary speaker, which is, illuminates things and shows a different pathway. You're not someone who, if you come to me and say, I know I need to be funny on stage and get a laugh in the first 3 minutes, I'm going to go, no, you don't, because you're luminary. That doesn't suit the luminary style. So we also look at your core identity, and we have a process called Blue Apple, and it's 6 key questions. It's, what is this? Who's it for? Why does this matter to me? Why does it matter to the audience? And we go psychographic on that, not demographic. What's the gift we're going to give them? And what's the emotional state we want them left in at the end? Those are our starting blocks. And the reason being is because so many people think that they should be speaking, but they've no idea of how to get value to the audience. So that's the step one. Step two is we actually have to deliberately select the stories we're going to use. And the next step after that is we actually have to get clear on structure. So everybody that we've taken from speaking for free and frustrated through to being paid and paid well, they've actually followed structure. So structure is not about you can tell where you're taking it. Structure is a deliberate movement of people from where they are now to where you want them to be, to where they never expected to be. And you can't do that speaking off the cuff. So number one is it's an investment. I remember one of our programs we ran late last year that finished in March this year. One of the feedback videos was, I cannot believe that I didn't know before how important every word is.
Mm.
Right? So every word can connect you or disconnect you from somebody in the audience. Every single word, every single sentence. So how do people get started? They actually get serious, is actually my thing. Take it seriously. The first time I spoke, I refused to speak. I was from the wrong side of the tracks with a bad history. I didn't want to speak in public. And there was a time when I was 29 when I had to. And I knocked it out of the park, mainly because it was a leadership event. I had Andrew and Jeff, two full stories on, right? And then I was like the shy, quiet teenager who discovered crack cocaine. I went from never speaking, refusing to speak, to I'd speak for anyone, anywhere, anything, on any time. Just give me a mic and a breathing person in front of me. What I realized after about 18 months, though, was that everybody loved hearing me speak. Everyone looked forward to when I was going to be speaking. No one could tell me what I spoke about. So the remembered bit is actually, if you want to be paid, you've got to be remembered. Right? You've got to be memorable. So a lot of people want to be seen and heard and paid, and they don't realize they've got to be memorable. You've got to be remembered. And memorable is not antics on a stage or your PowerPoint. It's your content, it's your message, and it's landing straight in the hearts of your audience. And that's deliberate, right? Most people who call themselves a speaker are actually quietly dying because they're stuck in what we call the you're so good zone. So you're so good. We have a scale of 6 levels, and you're so good is at level 3, and that's still in what we call the red zone. It's the most dangerous place to be, because when you speak, you hear people say, oh my God, you're so good. You're so amazing. The world needs your work. The world needs to hear your story. It's incredible. Everyone needs this. Everyone needs to hear you. You're so good. You're so good. You're so good. You're so brave. You're so great. You're so good. You're so good. That's all about you.
Mm.
You need people coming up to you and saying what I said before. It's like you're looking in my windows. How do you know my world? When you spoke about that, I realized I could do this. When you spoke about this, I remembered that. I actually think I can go and do something now, right? So you want to elicit an emotional response in them that they feel compelled to tell you about, right? So you have to get really deliberately focused on the audience. Your
Mm.
podcast is all about your audience, right?
Mm.
If so many people getting on stage to speak is because they have a need to be heard. But your need when you get on a stage, if you want to be remembered and paid, is a need to serve.
So you're wondering the value in being a podcast guest. Think about it. You want to build your personal brand. Is it important as ever? And coming on this show allows you to do just that. You're able to leverage our audience, but not only that, you're able to leverage the content from this podcast as you clock up the hours someone spends with you. The longer time someone spends listening to your story, your solutions in the marketplace allows you to do something special. It allows you to build a community and build a brand. You can leverage the community here, but you can also leverage the content from this show to be able to use where? On LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where you're going to shine. LinkedIn is where you're going to generate leads. So whoever you are, you want to come and tell your story. You want to be able to come in and be a guest that allows you to build your brand. Link in the description. We'll get in touch. So join our waiting list to feature on the Rubasha Family Podcast.
You have to replace the need to be heard with the need to serve.
Powerful.
And you have to give. You have to give. Right? Not just a raw story and a hero's journey. I mean, most people forget the whole point of a hero's journey is the hero comes back with the elixir to share, with the wisdom and the insights. Most people think a hero's journey is life was great, life was shit, and life was great again, right? That's not a hero's journey. A hero's journey returns with the wisdom and the insights to share. That's what you give. If you are purely a lived experience speaker, please give me some insights and some wisdom. Don't just tell me your story. Sorry, don't just tell me your story.
Okay.
Right? Give me the wisdom and the insights. You've got to be in service to your audience. And if you're not, get off the stage until you've done enough work that you can be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. I think you just hit the nail on the head. And that's one of the most important things that you said. You see, even when I looked, I loved the motto, heard, remembered, and paid. Of course, I looked at paid, and of course, like, yes, we want to be paid for what we do, but that remembered part is the circle, right? How can I be remembered? How can, when people leave that building, that person inspired me? And sometimes I'll get that in person where you can feel that energy where someone, you put a dent into someone's mind to really be remembered, but it comes from service. It comes from thinking of them. And that is extremely
100%.
You know, and one thing I'd go to places, right? And presentations, people doing presentations of their business, things, and I'd see it and it's cool and it's always about their business. Yes, they're solving problems in the marketplace. But when I got the chance to do a presentation, I did it differently. And I seen this from another speaker, I like Gary Vee, he, you know, it's in a similar space. Yeah. And what I had done was, it was like, okay, I'm just going to tell you who I am and like why I'm here. But then I just opened it up for questions. Ask me questions. This is about me. And when I did that, that's when it changed, because now everyone was engaged compared to what I had seen where people were just like listening and the person just talking. It's like you open it up for questions. And now through the questions, they resonate with you and they connect you. But it's so powerful what you're saying there. I think, how can you be remembered?
Yeah. And it's a bit that people miss. So that 6 layers we were talking about before, the top layer of that is the trifecta. And the trifecta is every time you speak, 3 things happen. So either you are referred to another gig, you're rebooked, referred, and you pick up a gig from someone in the audience. So 3 significant speaking events if you're a professional speaker. If you're speaking to drive business growth, then there are 3 things that happen. So you might pick up another speaking gig that's paid. You might pick up a great client. You might get an appointment to an advisory board, but there are 3 significant things that happen every time you speak. And that's the benchmark. The thing is, you can't get those 3 significant things happening every time you speak if you're not in service and you're not memorable and you're not really giving. So we have to share and we have to teach. We have to share. And you did the teaching through the questions, right? So we have to share story to connect, which is what you did to start with. And then you have to teach. And so whether or not you're presenting or you've got an open forum where you're facilitating, you have to tell story only, because what people don't realize with stories, we don't tell stories because we love them. So we tell stories because the only reason we're telling stories from a platform or a stage is to create trust and connection with the audience. That's it. The stories are not about you. So even when it's your story, stories are not about you. The story is to create trust and connection. You do that for the first 25 to 35% of any presentation, pure story. You don't pull up to give the insights and the wisdom and share that and make sense. You give pure stories. Then you, which is what you did with, I'm going to open up the floor. Then you create something that we call an attention snap. And there's different ways of doing it. And then you go into teaching. You only go into teaching and sharing wisdom and sharing insights and sense making when you've actually spent enough time creating trust and connection. And most people go straight into sense making and try and tell the audience how they should feel.
Amazing, amazing. Can you talk to us a little bit about your journey with the podcast? You know, you are a podcast host. I did forget to mention that at the start, and what made
Yeah.
you wanna get into podcasting? Because someone like yourself, you know, such experience doing what you're doing, you love what you're doing. Why the podcast? And what's your vision?
Yeah, so there's a couple of things that happened in the podcasting journey. So I had one to start with, which was called Raise 1000 Voices, and it ran out of steam, as in I ran out of steam. So it's still on the platform. It's 24 episodes. We changed it to being a limited series because it didn't have my heart. And that show, as you know, you've got to have heart for this, right? And so it didn't have my heart. It was a great idea, and I really enjoyed some of the conversations, but it didn't have my heart. I just went, and I'm a big believer in hitting the kill switch when you need to. So that was the first iteration. Then Speaker Driven Business, which, we didn't market, we didn't launch, we're about to hit 50,000 downloads, and we're about to change gears with it as well. There was a couple of things. I wanted something, my primary driver was service. So I want to democratize access to the basics of speaking and selling because it changes people's lives. I'm expensive as a coach. My programs are high ticket. Right? There's no doubt about it. We've launched our first ever membership site because we now have the audience to do that. And that's a low cost. But then there's also people who can't even do that. Right? So I know the impact that learning how to use my words made for me, and I would not be here. And it's not just like the way up. It's also like that spectacular.
If you really enjoyed this video, make sure to click here, and I'm sure you're going to love that one.